Hello, once again, Internet.
Hi.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm JD.
I don't know why I'm talking like this. I thought it'd be funny, and I just sound like a dingus. So I'm gonna stop.
Or like you have a cold, maybe, a little bit.
A little nasally. Welcome back to another internet video brought to you by us.
Get off my lawn.
Catch us every Sunday on twitch.tv/Dungeons and Dopes. Also,
Down there.
the Instagram,
Also down there.
instagram.com/Dungeons and Dopes.
And a Discord.
Also,
Also down there.
and feel free to like and subscribe if you like what we're doing. If you
And
don't,
comment.
give us a thumbs down, Zo, but tell us what we can do to make this better.
Please.
JD,
Yes.
what's our topic today?
We talked about it last week. We've talked about it in passing, kind of hit on it a little bit here and there. Let's make a skills video. Let's talk about skill rolls and skill checks, and maybe even a little bit of like when to use a skill versus just a flat check versus a save, and kind of that kind of thing.
I can dig it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times when it comes to check versus save, sometimes as a player they can go either way, right? Or sometimes a failed skill check will lead to a save.
Yeah.
Right.
Typical rule of thumb on that, just a quick pass over it, because I do want to make it like a full saves video at some point, but just a quick pass over it. Anything that a character has absolutely no training, has never touched it, anything like that, and is kind of vague or doesn't really tie into a skill per se, check. Anytime that if there is a detrimental effect tied to something, then it's a save. And that's really the only big difference.
I'm also a firm believer in when it comes to skill checks that, in my opinion, if it doesn't really matter whether the player succeeds or fails, then there's no real need to ask for a roll.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about when you have a player roll. When should a player be rolling a skill check? You're gonna be in the hot seat soon. You're gonna be the DM in 5 weeks. 5 weeks.
About a month to change it.
Yeah, 5 weeks, maybe 6. I don't know. We'll see. So yeah, let's have a quick discussion. Hit the high points here on when should a player roll a skill check.
If I was in a DM spot and I have a situation where a player is going to do something, use an action essentially on let's say something is something as simple as picking. Put them together, you get pickle.
It happens.
Words are hard. If you, for example, have a rogue that wants to go and check a door, turns out it's locked. Okay, let's go ahead and just check the door for traps. Okay, that is a skill, something that the rogue, for the most part, excels at.
What skill is that? Do you know offhand?
For checking on a door?
In 5th edition, we'll say.
Investigation. And I'm going to go why I say investigation instead of perception. Because to perceive something, in my eyes, is something that's going on around you. It is in your vicinity, that what you are seeing, what you can perceive.
Sure.
Investigation, and this is how I'm going to do the rolls, and this is the way I like them. Anytime you are going hands-on with something or looking for something specific,
Okay.
you have a reason to be doing what you're doing specifically for one thing, or you're touching it with your hands.
Sure.
On rogues, it's the thieves tool check.
But what does that fall under? Because it's separate.
It has its own specific
They're
one.
separate. And that was one thing I kind of glossed over last night, and I'm going to change it a little bit. But yeah.
Oh my god, and I have it on him. I've never used it. It's I'm not going to be around the bush. Just remind me.
Okay. Also, your camera just went dark.
Yeah, I know.
Somehow. I don't know. It was weird. Whoa, now we're really bright. We'll get it adjusted. So I like the idea of what you're going for. Usually it's just flat perception, or just perception in general to find them either way. I do think that it has to do with range at that point. If you're walking down a corridor and you're looking for traps in the floor, or you're trying to spot traps as you walk, I think
That what I say is a perception.
I think that's
if
perception.
it's right in front of my face
Right.
and I'm going to be working with it with my hands on, I would say I would
At that
call
point,
for an investigation.
sure. If you're checking a door or you're checking a box or something
Yeah,
like that,
yeah.
you're seeing if there might be trapped. At that point, investigation.
Agreed, 100%.
I'm glad we went to the book because I was wrong on that. I thought they'd rolled an into sleight of hand. It's actually just a flat dex check, and the thieves' tools give you advantage or a bonus. So it's actually just a flat check, which is interesting. I always roll it into something else usually. And I feel like most people roll it into something else, or they just, oh, hey, you found it, cool, you're able to disarm it, and we go on about our day.
Yeah, because you get proficiency in thieves'
Right.
tools, so it adds to your modifier to it.
Yeah, that's when people should roll. Okay, comes up at every table, because there's almost always, people excited, they're wanting to do something. Hey, can I roll to do this? I'm gonna roll to do this. Hey, I rolled a 16 to look for traps. Hey, I rolled a 12 to persuade this person. It's very rarely whenever somebody does that they say, hey, I just rolled a 4 to try to lie to the guard.
Right? It's never like a preemptive bad roll, right?
Right.
It's almost always like, oh, that's a 17 on that check that you're gonna ask for.
Right. Because if they're low roll, or if they roll low, they just don't say anything.
Right.
So
I would commend a player like, man, yeah, I talked to the guy, I already rolled my charisma check on it.
Right.
Yeah, bro, that's a 4.
And that's
no, maybe he won't ask me.
That's a special kind of player that will do that. Depending on what it is, if it's one of those DM's busy, something like that. I've been known to do that before and just be like, hey, I know you were talking to them and stuff was busy. I did this and I rolled for it and it was bad.
Right. And I don't know who I am anymore.
Or if it's like something completely insignificant and it wouldn't change anything, like I'm trying to spot traps in the room or whatever and I roll a 2, it's like, I just don't say anything because at that point it's no different than me saying something and pointing it out. But it still kind of falls under that shouldn't be done by a player.
Right, preemptive rolling.
Preemptive rolling is a really bad habit. It's really easy to fall into. And honestly, when players should roll, 100%, the DM will ask you to make a roll when you need to make a roll. Otherwise, just keep talking.
Case in point, dude.
And don't ask to make a roll. Just say, hey, if you're wanting to look for traps, hey, I'm looking for traps. Okay, cool. Hey, I want to check the door for traps. Okay, cool. Hey, I'm looking for loot. Okay, cool. Hey, I'm going to tell the guard this. I'm going to lie to the guard. I'm going to persuade don't ever be like, the DM will be like, make a roll. Or just, there's really no point to say, I want to roll to do this. Just, I want to do this. And then if there's a roll needed, sure, there may not even be a roll needed.
Right, and this is going to kind of circle back to what I was going to say. Like, if you're having a conversation with somebody in character as an NPC, from your PC's perspective, if you're talking to this person that doesn't know you from a hole in the ground, essentially, that has maybe no reason to believe you, or this guy looks like he's pretty trustworthy, he looks fancy, he doesn't look like he's lying to me, and you tell him a quick lie, you might not even have to ask for it because in reality, they have no reason to not believe that you're full of shit.
Exactly. It's one of those... telling somebody that you're new to town when you grew up there, sure, they have no reason to not believe your lie.
Right.
Telling a guard that,
but if it's like this extravagant thing, right?
You're holding a bloody sword in your hand and a guard walks up and there's a body at your feet and you say, no, it wasn't me, I just got here.
Right, exactly.
I need you to roll for that one.
Well, that's
a little different. What about group rolls? What about the group is working their way through a dungeon and everybody wants to look for loot? They clear a room and everybody starts tearing the room apart.
Okay, so I'm gonna get to something and I'm lead up there.
Sure.
So traveling through like terrain and stuff when you're going from point A to point B, this journey, as it were, is another good time for group rolls. Survival checks is a big one. And if I am in a DM position and I was doing that when I'm having the group roll, what I would ask was like, okay, everybody, go ahead and make these rolls. And then I'm going to take the average of more or less what the cumulative roll would be. So you got 15, 12, 16, 14, 13.
Right.
Average is about 14 to 15.
In a survival check, if one person is, okay, just for an example, you have the wizard, grew up his whole life in the tower, in the guild, whatever, going to school, trying to make his craft. Now he's out adventuring and he says, oh, I'm going to go help with the survival. I'm going to go help find food and water and help find provisions and set up a camp.
He's never left his house.
Okay, cool. Yeah, you go help with that. Your role is going to average with the fighter who was in the military and actually has had to do this stuff for years. And we're going to average those because he's having to keep up with you and make sure you're okay and clean up your mess, and you're scaring off animals and game and stuff, and like he can't trust you to go pick berries because you might pick poisonous berry. Like,
I found these. I already ate them. Roll a death save.
well, you're dead. So I like taking the average. I will tell you that I do this a lot, and y'all see me make these rolls and never see what they are. I do group rolls a lot on Fantasy Grounds because there is a little drop down where I can go through the skills or go through the saves and say, okay, I need everybody to make this roll. I want it to be hidden. Click. Okay, cool. There's everybody's perception roll for this place. There's everybody's survival roll while you're on the road. There's everybody's spot check to see if you spot the trap or whatever. If nobody says anything, then there's your passive. Or if somebody's like, I'm leading, I'm trying to watch for stuff, cool, let me make that roll, or that kind of thing. I think a DM making some of the rolls to prevent metagaming is a very useful thing.
I don't have a problem with it.
I think it has to be done correctly.
Right, and I would say that the counter to that would be like, when we're playing games, we like rolling, right? We like rolling as players. Yeah. It's fun. So I don't have a problem with it, provided it's not taken completely away. Okay, let me roll this check on the background. Okay, there's this monster that's basically in the shadows. Yeah. The players haven't noticed it yet. Okay, they haven't noticed yet. Maybe at that point, okay, so I'm not completely steamrolling. I was like, all right, guys, I want you to go ahead and make a perception check. Okay.
And that's it. And then everybody's going, why?
Why? It's fine.
Why?
That's JD's thing. It's fine. That needs to be on a shirt. It's fine.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's fine. It might come
going back to what you said about like cumulative investigation kind of situations, like after you've torn a room apart. I like the idea of handling them this way. If you have a player that goes into a room and it's like, hey, is there anything in the room? Oh yeah, there's some stuff. Can I look for some loot or something that's, out of the ordinary? Sure, go ahead and make an investigation check.
Right.
Because you're just doing a scour. Okay. I rolled. Let's say it's an 8. And the guy's like, okay, well, before you roll, can I help you with that too? That's the second player. DM says, sure. So I think they should kind of be handled in one of two ways. Option 1, if you want to help a player do an essential like an investigation or perception check. Mm-hmm. I like the idea of handling them one of two ways. 1, you can let the player roll with advantage on the check.
Or you take the highest roll.
Which essentially at that point is still kind of the same thing.
Right.
Right.
Even if you have, a group of 6 and they're all doing the same thing. One person roll, just take the highest roll out of the whole group. And just leave.
How do you feel about those situations about just taking 10 and just completely going toe to toe with everything?
I think that is a little bit of a callback. I think it's fine. I think it used to be more prevalent. It used to be taking 10, taking 20, and taking 20 is like a nat 20, and you take as long as it's necessary. Taking 10 is 10 minutes up to an hour, and you just take a 10 on the roll and just take the average. But I think it's a decent tactic. I think at that point, why even have it be a roll per se, and just be
exactly.
I think that's also, you can do the same thing if you use passive everything.
And that's one thing that I feel is overlooked a lot, like your passive perception.
Right, but I mean, why not passive investigation? Why not passive sleight of hand? Why not passive survival? I mean, you have enough, if you're not under duress and you have enough time to do the
Right,
thing,
you're chill, you're calm. You're like, I got nothing to
Yeah.
worry about.
you have enough time to do the thing as skillfully as you're able to. Assume that you roll the average and take 10. Use the
Yeah.
passive, because for a rogue who grew up on the streets, picking pockets, sleight of hand checks is second nature, and
Yeah, exactly.
I think it falls a little bit onto what you're proficient in, though. I think that should be a thing. If you're proficient in it, you can always use the passive.
I like that idea.
Because you have
I never
training.
thought about that. Right, it's something that you're supposed to already be good at, that you already excel.
Right, and then the only time you actually make a roll in that or need to is if you're under duress, if there's some kind of time constraint or threat of something going on.
I kind of like that. That actually, I think it leans more into the fact than like as a player, which I want to see more of that in our game because I like this now.
It's there. It's actually I use it. I just don't ask for the roll.
I mean, I guess that makes sense. But
I look at, you have proficiency, so you have training.
Exactly.
You have knowledge of this thing. Your stats are this high. If you were to take 10 or take a passive, which is 10 essentially, of this, then you have this much. Cool. Don't even make a roll. We're just going to keep going. You successfully do the thing. Here we go.
Oh yeah, I guess that is true.
Yeah, I do that a lot with cloves, sneaking, and stealthy things, and even now the piloting and stuff, because there's training there, there's repetition, there's knowledge of these things. All right, we beat around the bush, we've talked about it, hinting at it here and there. Meta rolls.
Man, it's hard to not metagame. I mean, it's not. Let me phrase that. It's not hard to not metagame when you've been playing for so long, and it happens. Having the knowledge that you, as a player, are making a check for somebody else, like your character, making a roll for whatever it might be, and botching the roll. Let's say it's like a 2. I'm not going to say it's a natural 1. Let's go with a 2 or 3.
No. Let's give the example from yesterday, because it's a perfect, pristine example, and I think it's fine. And we don't normally call people out, but I'm going to call people out on this one because it is 100% metagaming.
It's meta. It's meta. Yeah. All right. So case in point, here's what happened. We had somebody with a little bit of rogue background go to pick a lock, or check for traps.
Check for traps on a door.
On a door, and they rolled. I believe it was like a 4.
It was an 8 or a 7 because they were right beside each other.
It wasn't a 10, but realistically, metagaming, he failed.
It was a low roll.
Yeah, unless the DC is mega low, then
right.
He wasn't going to succeed. So, knowing that his player felt, well, for the rolls, the character itself was like, hey, I did my best. It should be okay, which is the way that should work.
Looks clear.
It exactly looks clear. Put the meme here. It didn't work out that way. So once the player realized that the role was not what he wanted it to be, he then tried to sway another character to go check the door. At which point you're just like, you're metagaming because you know as a player that you didn't do good on that roll.
Right.
So you want somebody else to check the door. That's the definition of meta.
Right.
And you're trying to pass that off onto somebody else.
The character that checked the door has no reason to know that they didn't check it very well. They would 100% believe, hey, I did my best. I have training in this. I've searched this door up and down. I haven't found anything.
Yeah, 100%. So then you're kind of stuck in this weird, awkward position as the other player that's like, well, I mean, not going meta. Oh yeah, sure, I trust you, no problem. Or put your ass on the line and risk your character that you have been playing at this point for 25 weeks
because
that
somebody
you are invested in.
Doesn't trust their role, which is, it's another reason that I really like Fantasy Grounds, and it's something I need to start asking for more. And I think you can do the same thing on Roll20. It's been a long time since I was on there. On Fantasy Grounds, there's a dice tower that you can put in, and then it hides the roll to where only the
roll
DM
from the
can
players.
see it.
Yeah.
After that happened yesterday, I'm really debating every time somebody's looking for traps. Make a roll. Put it on the dice tower. I want to be the only one that can see that. That way when I say...
Oh, yeah, because the player that rolled it will have no idea.
No, that way whenever I say, looks clear. Could be a good thing. Could be a low roll. Could be a great roll. You have no idea. Or whenever I say, oh, yeah, you find this trap. Then could be a good roll. Could be a bad roll. And it could just be a low DC. Yeah, because
then it removes the ability to even attempt to metagame because you as a player have no idea. Like, no, because then it forces you in that position where I think I did good.
Exactly. And being able to... It's my only problem with skill checks that I've ever had is having people be able to say, oh, well, that looks like a low roll. I'm just going to not do the thing.
But that's the whole point of why you're rolling. You already attempted it.
You're already doing the thing.
Right.
So it's different. Like, traps are on a different level than saying, oh, well, I try to wrestle this person. Okay, cool. If you low roll on that on your athletics or whatever, you fail at what you're trying to do. But whenever you're looking for traps, then it's okay. Well, I don't see anything, but I rolled low. Well, now I don't trust it. And that
because you're metagaming.
Exactly, and that disconnect there just it's just no.
Metagaming doesn't hurt you. It does hurt you. It hurts your friends.
It's a complicated beast. It's hard not to. It's hard to see. You know, you rolled a 4 on your spot trap, and you so, hey, it looks clear. It's hard to do that whenever you know that you rolled low. Like it's hard to do.
I mean, knowing that you've rolled low at that point, like the legit way would be to play the role. Hey man, yeah, I checked it. All right, yeah, let me go ahead and open the door. You know it's coming, essentially. Well, you don't know, but you feel.
Right.
Like, well, maybe you got lucky and maybe it's not trapped or whatever, and you get away.
Just to cover all the door was not trapped.
No!
There was no trap on the door. And door wasn't even locked. It wasn't, stuck. It wasn't anything. Like, literally could go on the lever and the door just... There was nothing going on with the door. It's just he didn't want to touch the door because he thought he made a low roll on the check to traps. And doesn't matter if there's no trap. It doesn't matter if there is a trap. And you just make a low roll. My response and my reaction is always the same. Oh, it looks clear.
Right, and that's the way it should be.
Exactly.
And that's the way it should be. And
so yeah,
putting another player in that position it sucks, man, because it happened to me, and I'm just like, I don't know if I want to go play meta. And like, I played the meta, but I played it to the like in character. I was like, kind of, I don't know. I don't think you checked that out too thoroughly. Are you sure this is okay?
Or it's just weird to watch a character go check out a door, pause, and this is the way that I would describe it in character. The character goes, they check the door for traps, they check the hallway for traps, whatever. They pause. They sit there for a couple seconds. Then they walk away and say, I think it's okay. And they don't sound too sure.
I should have asked for a deception check.
and at that point, like, they don't sound too sure.
Exactly. He definitely sounds like he's doubting his.
So then the group can be like, did you though? Why don't you go open the door? You're the one that checked it. You go open it. But that's in person. That's harder to control. At that point, I feel like if you want to avoid that completely, you make it to where there's no chance of it happening, like you would use the hidden rolls on fantasy grounds or Roll20. At that point, it's about the only way you can do it is have the DM roll it privately. And just be like, hey, I'll do the trap check rolls and stuff like that. Just if stuff's there, I'll roll it. I'll roll it. If it's not there, just, I'll let you know.
I think it's definitely a fix, but I think
it's a weird
thing. But I think personally that it shows a lot about a player and the person playing their character if they make that roll and like, all right, yeah, I tried my best. Cool. I mean, I'm convinced I did good. Oh shit. Right. And I think like ultimately like that's the way we would want it to be, right, without having to rely on that other stuff.
Right. Because if you design your dungeons right, unless you're doing, I don't know, Tomb of Horrors, Tomb of Annihilation, something like that, where there's just traps everywhere. If you design your dungeons right, there's a trap here, there's a trap over there, there's maybe a trap over here. They're scarce, they're scattered, they're few and far between, and even there was no trap on that door, and it's like, okay, cool, yeah, no trap on that door.
Yeah, and even then, calling back to one of our other videos too about like, go ahead.
Well, a couple doors later, it was like a 17. Okay, yeah, looks clear, and everybody was stacked up on the door, and it was a cone of flame trap, and everybody got hit.
Yeah, we got crispy.
Like, there's no way to know, and you can't meta it just because you have a low roll. You just got to go with it.
And there's nothing wrong with that, man. I mean, traps are going to happen. Mm-hmm. You're not going to succeed on all of them, and you're bound to run into some of them. But like I was going to say, I was like calling back to one of our older videos. If you have traps that are insta-kill, unless there's like a reason behind it for some type of narrative thing or something like that, we don't. I'm not a fan of them. That's fine. So no. That doesn't really fit with what I'm saying. But if you're going to hit by a trap, what's the worst that's going to happen? I mean, yeah, you're going to take some damage. It might hurt you pretty badly, but you can bounce back.
I mean,
take a long rest.
I sit here and I make faces and I'm like, no. And then I'm like, well, technically the dungeon that you're in, you're probably going to have a few of those at some point.
I mean, you already kind of let me know what's going on because we talked about it.
But there's a little bit of a
But again, no, this, like I said, it's narrative at that point.
Right. And there's a system there to prevent it from being a feels bad.
Exactly.
It's a setback,
from a
not a
narrative
reset.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but if your player's like, oh, you walk the door, you didn't check for trap, the wall, shaboom, rip.
Yeah. Oh, you took one step in the hallway. There's 3 tiles. Which tile did you step on? Oh, I stepped in the middle one. Great. Everybody's dead.
What? Roll new characters? Nobody wants that.
No. But, yeah, a little bit on skill checks, a little bit more on metagaming with traps and stuff, which kind of falls into skill checks. We made it fit. For now, though, I think that'll wrap us up for today.
Catch us every Sunday, twitch.tv/Dungeons and Dopes at 4 p.m. Follow us on the Instagrams, instagram.com/Dungeons and Dopes. We'll put our Twitters at the bottom as well. Anything else you want to add before we get out of here, JD?
Discord at the bottom as well. Yeah, I think that's it.
Bye!
Bye.